Assalamu alaikum, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us today. Seeing that we have our Mizan lecture series today, but we're facing some technical issues. So unless those issues resolve themselves, we'll turn this into a Q&A session. If the technical issue resolves early enough, we'll continue with the Mizan lecture series. Otherwise, we'll stick to the Q&A format. So with that in mind, if you guys have any questions, the same rules apply that we usually do for the Ask Dr. Saleem. You can ask your questions in either English and Urdu regarding any topic that you might have in mind. With the answers will be given in English unless specified otherwise. And to ask questions, you may raise your hand or you can send your questions in the chat. Okay, it seems that the technical issue is persisting, so we're just going to continue with Q&A altogether. So if you have any questions, please send them forth. Akram Bhatti, please go ahead.
Assalamu alaikum, sir. Assalamu alaikum.
Wa alaikum assalam.
सर सूरह निसा की पेज आया में जहाँ अल्लाह ताला फरमाते हैं कि हमने इंसान को एक नफ्स से बनाया। बाइबल में जो है कि इस तरह नहीं, वो आदम को बनाया फिर उनसे उनकी पसली से बनाया, उस पर जरा रोशनी डालेंगे कि हम किस तरह समझे उसको।
So, as Mariam told you, we have a electricity breakdown here, and we have barely enough electricity for audio conversation, and so that is why we have shifted to this. So I just thought I'd explain to you the reason. So, as far as the question is concerned, this first verse of Surah Nisa says, "Ya ayyuhan nas inna khalaqnakum min nafsin wahida wa ja'alna minha zawjaha," meaning that we have created you from one soul, and from the same soul we have created your species, which means that the mate of that soul is from the same species. It's not something from a different species. And the reason that this is pointed out is so that the equality of the genders, that both men and women, they are equal, is referred to, because we have been created by a single soul, and the mate of that soul is also of the same species. It would mean that both the species, both the mates or both the genders, or in fact both spouses, are equal to one. So this is what the Quran says. The Bible, of course, says that Eve was created from Adam's rib. And again, I think this is a problem which has arisen because of erroneous translation. Otherwise, if you look at the Quran, in all probability, what the Bible was also saying, in the book of Genesis, that Eve was made of the same species as Adam. So this must have been the original wording, but somehow it was wrongly translated as that Eve was made from Adam's rib.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, Dr. Saleem. Any more questions? We are, just to reiterate for newcomers, there is a lack of electricity on Dr. Saleem's side, so unfortunately we can't hold a normal session because there's just barely enough electricity to hold an audio session, and that's why we've switched over to Q&A instead of the usual Mizan lecture series that was initially planned for today. So there we go. We have the Ask Dr. Saleem image now. So the same rules apply. If you have any questions, please either raise your hand or post them in the chat. And you can ask your questions in English and Urdu. And the answers will be given in English unless specified otherwise. Okay, our next question comes from Noshad Shafkat. Please go ahead.
Assalamu alaikum. Dr. Sab, I don't have a question right now ready, but just suggesting that if you could enlighten us on some other little bit of Islam, Quran, In the meanwhile, we'll think up of questions because we didn't come prepared with the questions. That's why there's a lack of response. Thank you.
So one thing that I'd like to point out to all of you, and this is something that applies to me as well, that you see one of the primary targets that we should have before us is to not compare ourselves to people who are around us. So that comparison is slightly off. What we need to really compare ourselves is how we are today to the one we were, the self that we were the previous day. So the comparison that should be made is best that we compare our today with our yesterday. In other words, this is the target that we could set before ourselves, that we will become an improved version of ourselves that I was yesterday. And we have been discussing this, that the best way to improve ourselves, to become better individuals, is just one point, is a one-point agenda, and that is self-criticism, I would say. So self-evaluation and self-criticism is the only way forward. It is the only way through which we can analyze our own selves, analyze our mistakes, and move ahead in life. So for some time, I think it is wiser that we forget about what other people are doing, or the mistakes other people have, or the shortcomings that we have. Because you see, when we sit in a gap,
yeah, I was just discussing the fact that the best way forward to become an improved person is to compare our today's self with yesterday's self, which means that we should always be self-critical, always thinking about our own selves, where we are falling short. And you know what? All of us, we have various capacities. So, for example, we are fathers, we are brothers, we are sisters, we are spouses, we are parents. And then, of course, we have friends, we have colleagues, we have neighbors. So we must analyze ourselves in each of these capacities and ask this question to us, that am I a good father? Am I a good mother? Am I a good brother? And so on and so forth. And the answer that I will get through an honest analysis of my own self would be quite close to the truth. And if I ask this question, am I a good father or a good mother, I think that this is not something that you need to even ask your children, because you would know in most cases what they would be thinking about you. So self-criticism is the way forward, I would say. And this is also in another way making ourselves realize that we should not judge other people, because this again is something that is very common when we get together and discuss various issues. So judging other people, criticizing other people is simply not our domain. It's God's domain, because you see, we don't have sufficient data. We don't have sufficient knowledge of how the person is, what are his problems, shortcomings, battles, demons that person must be facing. So it is best to leave that person to himself or herself and think about our own selves. Now, what about how can we move forward while doing this this process of self-evaluation? So here I would have a couple of suggestions for that as well. And so the first thing that we can probably do is that we must always fix a time in which we evaluate the day that we have spent. And this can best be done before going to sleep every day. So before going to sleep every day, let us cast a glance on what happened during the day. Where did we fall short of that optimum behavior? Did we speak the truth at all times? Did we hurt anyone? Were we true to our own selves? Did we follow our conscience? So all these things, if we reflect back on the day's happening, will come to us immediately. And it is here that we need to make this commitment that, okay, today I fell short in such and such a situation, but tomorrow, inshallah, I'm going to get up in the morning and be a new person and take this new day to be a new opportunity. It's a new window of opportunity that God has offered me. And the thing that I did yesterday, I will try my best not to repeat them. So this is the first suggestion, that before going to sleep, we must take a look at what we did during the day. Secondly, I would suggest that on most occasions, on most occasions, when we would be doing this, we would be realizing that the more commitments that we make, the more we break them the next day. This is something that maybe is like a real test to us, that if you make this commitment that I'm not going to lie tomorrow, or I'm not going to be angry tomorrow, or not speak in harsh words, at times the commitments that you make are exactly the ones that you break the next day. And this makes us frustrated. And when we get frustrated, we tend to just lose hope in ourselves. And we say that, well, you make the same commitment every day, and every day you come back and do the same thing. You say that I'm not going to do this, and the very next day you do the same thing even more intensely. So what happens is that when this is something that we go forward with, then this hopelessness and despair gets the better of us. So what we now need to understand is that one of the the name of, I would say, not one of, the sole name of Satan in Arabic is Iblis. And the word Iblis actually occurs for someone who has lost hope in God. So the greatest weapon that Satan has for a person who has already lost hope is that he creates this environment of despair and and hopelessness around that person. So one of the greatest weapons is that if he is in Iblis, he tries to make us the same, in the same way. He tries to create that hopelessness in our own selves as well. And this is something which is that we must understand. We should not succumb to. Satan is going to try his best to make us more helpless than yesterday and more hopeless than yesterday. So we should never give up in the wake of failures. In the wake of commitments that we make, we must never think that tomorrow I'm going to be worse off and I'm good for nothing. So the second suggestion is that never give up, even if the commitments that you make to yourself every night are broken the very next day. Because if you keep on trying and never give up, there is bound to come a day in which you will be able to succeed. The third suggestion in this regard is that this is a constant process. So I often compare this to cleaning our rooms or dusting. So, I mean, just as we cannot say that once I have cleaned my room or dusted my desk, I need not do it again, because I know that after every 2 or 3 days, or maybe every day, I would need that cleaning, that vacuum or that dusting, because the dust is going to settle every day. In a similar way, the thought process that we go through makes us go through various challenges in life in which we need to be self-critical every day of our life. It's not that once we achieve a certain level, then we don't need to be self-critical. No, this is not going to happen, because as human beings, every day is going to be a challenge. So this process of self-evaluation and self-criticism is a lifelong process. It must not be thought of as a process in which maybe you can do this for, let's say, a couple of months, and then once you achieve that target, you'll be free, or you'll be absolved of this responsibility. That's not going to happen, because as human beings, we might achieve a target, but in order to stay there, we need to continuously work upon us. So that working is something that can only happen if we continue to be self-critical. So in other words, what I'm suggesting is that just as taking account of our day or evaluating our day is something that should not stop, because this is a lifelong process. And it's much like saying that we simply cannot say that, well, I have eaten enough today and therefore I'm not going to eat for the next 3 or 4 days. Or I've slept enough for today and I'm not going to sleep for the next 2 or 3 days. So just as sleep and food and these instincts, they are part of our life every day. In a similar manner, this process of self-evaluation is a process that should continue all our lives. It might seem difficult at first, but as we make this a constant habit, as we make it a part of our lives, we will soon realize that things become easy. The fourth thing that I would suggest in this regard is that there are things that you can share with a mentor. So each one of us should think of individuals who can be, if they are accessible to you, who can act as your guides and as your mentors, who would guide you when you are going through various patches of life. It could be grief, it could be happiness, it could be frustration. So you see, all of us, we pass through so many phases almost every day. So all of us need a GPRS, so to speak, to navigate through life. Yes, of course, the Quran and the guidance of the Prophet provides all of this. But at the same time, we do need a living example, some teacher, some mentor, someone who can guide us. So if you have access to people whom you can talk to, whom you can share your failings, or whom you can share your own personal issues, so that advice can be given on how you can overcome your failings. So that would be a plus. So the first three steps, as I said, are something that you can do on your own. So being self-critical every day, not getting frustrated, and fixing a time that is going before going to bed. So all this we can do on our own. But the fourth one, in which having a mentor is a very, very plus point, that if you are able to have someone in this capacity, then you will be able to navigate through life much quicker and in a way that is something that's really going to help you. And precisely this is something that has been happening in the Muslim tradition by our Sufis. So these Sufis that would sit in their khanqahs or in their abodes or in their places, this is precisely what they would do. But because of the fact that the philosophy of Tasawwuf or Sufism has some other issues, that it is not recommended that we actually adopt that path. But the methodology, of course, should be the same. I mean, instead of using Tasawwuf or Sufism as a source to navigate through life, these mentors, if they are good scholars and also good psychologists, then they can guide you in life through these problems, and you will feel very, very invigorated. And the fifth thing, which is a part of this all setup also, if that is also achievable, is that if you are discussing some of your issues in a group, for example, let me give you a very common example, and that is people have this very common habit of not being able to manage their time. So lack of time management or anger management. So these are the two things that I come across every day amongst our youth and elderly people as well, that they are not able to manage their time and they are not able to manage their anger or frustration. So what happens is that if you are able to seek guidance from a mentor in a group in which the person is suffering or going through the same issue, for example, if 2 or 3 people need to find guidance regarding time management, or similarly 2 or 3 or more people, I mean a group of people would like to find guidance regarding anger management. So if they are able to come together, so they'll feel that they have a common motive and they can actually be a help to each other. So besides being dependent on their mentor, they are also going to be self-supportive or mutually supportive, I would say. That it's like having a class fellow or a classmate in which if there is some homework, maybe you can receive help from your classmate. So in this case, because we have a common issue at hand, for example, all the participants are people who'd like to manage their anger. And so they have their own challenges in this regard. But the solution, of course, that would be provided by that mentor is something that can be adopted by all. And in this case, if you have this mutual support and backing of one another, then you can always discuss some of these things with those group participants, and it would become like a group therapy or a group guidance. And that is something which helps us a lot, because a mentor is not always available all the time. But people of the same group, I would say, they can perhaps be more available to one another than their own mentor. So these 5 suggestions, I would say 3 of them that can be done at any time, any place by any person. And the next 2 subject to the availability of a mentor and some of the people who have similar issues. Now, having said that, another interesting thing that I have come across in my life, which can really help and which has helped a lot of people, is something that I learned from Benjamin Franklin. So he was one of the founding fathers of the U.S., and he had a host of other, I would say, qualities. He was a polymath. But one of the things that he had, which is not very well known, is this urge to become a better human being. So if you Google his name, you'll find that he went through a transformation in life, and he actually, I would say, pointed out or demarcated 13 important values of life. So that's how you might find him on Google if you write Ben's 13 or Benjamin's 13 habits. So what he did was that he said that, well, these are the 13 habits, and these included positive ones and negative ones. So some of them he wanted to adopt and others that he wanted to give up. So what happened was that he created a small register and he wrote the names of those habits in the top column. And on the left side, he noted down the days. For example, he would write Monday, Tuesday, right up to Sunday in the left column. And on the top, he would actually write the names of those habits. For example, sacrifice, selflessness, patience, etc. You can see, you can look them up. And of course, these 13 are not that important, because you can have any 13, or you can have any 5, you can have any 10. So I'm just referring to the methodology which Benjamin Franklin adopted. We don't need to go through all the 13, or, choose the same 13. We can have our own 5 or 10 or 15, whatever. So the methodology that he adopted was he wrote those days on the left-hand side, and he wrote those habits on the top. And then he created a chart in which, for example, on a Monday, he would see that, did he follow a certain decorum regarding, let's say, anger management? And if he did not, he would put a black dot in the chart on that space in that day. And if he did, he would put a red dot. And so on and so forth for every other habit. So the objective was that he would have more black dots than the red dots, which meant that he was able to be more controlling of these negative habits and was able to overcome them. And less of those red dots, because those red dots signified that he was not able to actually succeed in his exercise. So in this way, his target was that there should come a week in his life that all the chart, every day and portion of the chart should have black dots, which meant that he was actually overcoming all his negative habits or negative desires 7 days a week at all times. And of course, this is virtually impossible. It's something of, you have to be an angel to have those black dots all the 7 days. And if I remember correctly, I think he did write one time that he was never able to achieve a perfect score or a perfect black dot chart for a week. But he said that what we can do is that we can continue to make this as a target. We have to aim high and then settle for something close to it. So this is what he did. And he said that, well, it may work for a person who has self-actualization and self-motivation as far as adults are concerned. But one thing that struck me when I had finished reading his proposal, that of course this is something that we can do as adults, and only those people can do it who have this motivation, who don't need to be motivated. But in fact, they are, as I said, self-actualized. But what really makes me happy is that this is something that can be suggested to schools and to, primary schools, middle schools, or maybe high schools. Because you see, in a teaching environment, if you have someone who is conducting, let's say, a personality development class or subject, so then that person can actually give this subject, or the school can give this subject a status in which its marks are counted in the overall evaluation of a person's stature. And so just as we have languages and subjects like physics or chemistry or biology, whatever, we can have a subject of personality development in which, besides other things, so there could be a host of other things that can be taught, but one of those would be that this personality chart can be a part that can be made a part of the curriculum, I would say, and it could go a long way, because you see, for adults, it's like a thing. It's a challenge for us because we have passed our ages, maybe, or passing through them, and to adopt new habits or new routines might not be very easy. But I think for the younger lot, for the primary people, the children or the school students studying in the primary classes, it might be something that the teacher can suggest, and it might work. So that is a suggestion that can be given to the people who are listening here today, and they can pass this on to potential teachers or to parents who can maybe adopt this, because this is like a practical suggestion to, in fact, put to practice whatever we have, committed at night, that I will not do that again. So, as I said, that this is a life plan that we can adopt. So, I will end my short talk here on this note that whatever method you adopt, whether you adopt this methodology of Benjamin Franklin or not, that's not important. It's just a suggestion. The thing is that you have to be an individual who is always seeking to be a better person than yesterday. So your battle with your own self is the real thing. The battle that being a better person than yesterday is the challenge that you should always place before yourself. Forget about others for some time. Yes, it's difficult to forget about others, but yes, as I said, if you concentrate more on your own self, then criticizing other people might at least reduce, if not go away altogether. So this is a suggestion that I wanted to give, and since Shehzad Saleem came up with this idea that we should talk about something, and then we can have a discussion. So I thought that I just put this before all of you.
Thank you so much. One, for Noshat Shafkat for bringing up such a good idea, and two, Dr. Saleem, for your words of wisdom, because I think these are all such practical tips that any of us can apply to and share with others, as you said. So I really like them. I have a really small follow-up question before we move on to the questions from the raised hands and the chat. What do you do about, you said not to compare yourself with others, but sometimes you get so invested in their problems, their life situations, that it's hard to, like, when you have so many people with so many different problems, it's hard to wrap your head around it. It's like, oh, why is this person going through that? And this other person is so nice. Why are they having to deal with such a thing? And so on. So, like, how do you go on about removing yourself or sort of setting boundaries between how you feel about others and their problems too?
So I see. I mean, that is another thing in which you are thinking about helping out other people. So that's something that I would never stop a person. That's something that you can always do, but as a person, as a friend who would like to help out other people if they are going through problems. What I was actually referring to the fact is that when you start comparing yourself to other people, what you do is that you don't at times become very realistic, and you become more ambitious, or you become jealous, or you become frustrated, and these things they take their toll. But when you start comparing your own self today with that of what you were yesterday, then you have a target to achieve, you have a realistic mission before you, and it might not be as frustrating, because you see, when you're comparing yourself to other people, you just don't know the challenges that the other person has, and how he or she is coping with them. But for your own self, you have all this data. So I would say that it's more productive. I would not say that if you adopt a different path, for example, you start comparing yourself with, let's say, a friend or maybe a neighbor or a colleague, that too could work. But I feel that it's much more productive if you compare your today with your yesterday.
Thank you very much, Dr. Saleem. We'll move on to the questions. Ahmed, you're up first. Please go ahead.
Assalamu alaikum.
Alaikum assalam.
Dr. Saleem, I have two questions. एक इंसिडेंट्स के बारे में जो कि मुझे क्लोज फ्रेंड्स की फैमिली में मैंने देखा, वो ये था, फर्स्ट क्वेश्चन इज रिगार्डिंग इंटरफेथ मैरिजेस, यानी the parents are facing that their child, which is a girl and Muslim, wants to marry some other people of some other religion, any boy of other religion. So the question is it totally forbidden or is it morally not allowed?
So you see, the issue of marriage is a very important decision that a person has to take in his life or her life. And the ideology that you follow, if you are a practicing person who follows the ideology, then it would matter a lot, especially on the children that you would raise in future and in your interpersonal relationship between the spouses. So the target or the objective that we have been given as Muslims is that for us, the most important thing to choose a life partner is something in which you cannot compromise, is that the person should be a very sincere and a pure monotheist. He should be a person who believes sincerely in one God. And so, therefore, Islam has not allowed any marriage with the idolaters, like people who are mushrik, people who have who associate partners with God, only as a lesser, I would say, option, not as an ideal option, as a lesser option. It allows Muslim men to marry among the women of the people of the book, because the people of the book, in spite of being incriminated with polytheistic practices, for example, Christians regard Jesus to be the Son of God. And if the times of the Prophet were here, I would have said that the Jews of those times had regarded Ezra to be the Son of God, etc. So, in spite of that, the Quran still called them to be monotheists because they said that we are monotheists. So, because of this very fact that in spite of being incriminated with various practices of polytheism, they still professed faith in one God, and they said that God is one, even though the way they said it is something which the Quran did not accept. But still, it gave us this permission that we can marry women from the people of the book, because in such situations, when the head of the family is there, and especially when this permission was given in Arabia, was the time when Islam had prevailed in the whole of Arabia. So it was something that could be well thought of, that women who would come from the people of the book as wives would live in subservience to these strong Muslim traditions, and this would not affect their family in the sense that they would raise their children on their own faith. So this was like a lesser second option that was given to the people of the, to Muslims to marry amongst the people of the book. Otherwise, the ideal thing that the Quran has mentioned is that not only should we marry amongst Muslims, but also amongst Muslims who are very true, diehard monotheists and practicing Muslims. So this is what the ideal is. Now, having having lived our lives in various parts of the world, we see that our children, they have a different perspective, and many children have. So unless the children have been given or taught this love for monotheism and how important the creed of monotheism is to a Muslim, you cannot expect from them to behave in a way that we would like them to behave. So I think this is something that should be done at the start of their ages, that the love of God, the love of one God, is engendered in them in such a profound way that they themselves think that, well, I cannot marry someone who is not a monotheist. So if this is something that the parents did all their lives, then they can expect that this would seldom happen, that their children would choose from some other religion. But if they never did this, for example, and the love of monotheism or the love for one God was never engendered in a child, you cannot expect that child to take the same decision as, for example, you would like him or her to take. So I think that in such a matter, you should just tell them what the true picture is and then let them decide.
Okay, but the second question is, in this case, as far as I know, the family is very good and religious in good sense, and I think they have taught their children very well. But when some of the children they migrate to West, so their ideas change and they start thinking that this is a very traditionalist approach to marry a Muslim. They have to be modern and whatever like that. But the other question comes with this: the parents now think that, okay, if you want to do if you want to choose like this, so then we will have no contact with you. So my question is it halal, or parents have this right or not? They don't have this right.
I think this is a wrong approach in life, because parents have to realize that they are not responsible for the decisions of their adult children. They cannot back away as parents. If children have chosen a different life partner, which is different to their own liking, a grown up child has this right to do so. And if the parents say that we are going to break our relationships with you or not have any future contact, this would be a wrong decision. This would be against the Quran. The Quran says that you cannot sever your relationship as a father or your mother. Whatever your child may be, it is his or her business. I mean, he or she is responsible to whatever decisions that she takes before God. But as for you, you are responsible as a father or as a mother, and you'll be asked that what did you do with your fatherly and motherly affection? Or how did you manage to draw it away? So that is something that is, I would say, not at all recommended. Parents can express their difference of opinion, but at the end of the day, remember, Islam gives the choice of marriage, or in fact, any choice taken in by adults regarding their career, or as I said, marriage, or any other important area, to the person himself or herself. But parents have to realize that they are well-wishers. They can suggest, they can advise, but they cannot force their way or blackmail, I would say, emotionally blackmail their children by saying that, well, you go ahead with what you're doing, and we are not going to be part of what you're doing. So I would call that to be an emotional blackmail, and parents don't have this right.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you very much, Dr. Saleem. Our next question comes from Noshad Shafkat. Please go ahead.
Dr. First of all, thank you to Mariam for that compliment. Actually, my wife had asked me to fry some fish, and I was doing that and suddenly got this idea, so the credit goes to her. Dr. I just wanted to know that there are stories in the Quran of the earlier prophets, like Prophet Abraham confronting Namrud or Nimrod. But the details are not as much as we are told. Now, how have these details come into being? How have people found out that God sent a mosquito that went into his head and was bothering him? Are there any authentic sources for such stories?
So a lot of these stories are not authentic. They have been just passed down, and they have been recorded in the books of Jewish history, and they just, they just continue to be circulated. So we don't have, all of these stories can be judged on the principles of historical criticism, and a decision can be taken about them. So my suggestion would be that in all such cases, we have to stick with the narration of the Quran, and if we have any authentic, I would say, explanation, then we should consult whatever we have from Prophet Muhammad, because he has also narrated a lot of narrations from the Jews, like Kabul Ahbar. He was a Jew of Syria. He later converted to Islam. So you see, once you convert, you still have your original knowledge. So many of the things that they would narrate would be from their own knowledge of the history of the Israelites. So that is why this genre is called the Israeliyat, which means that the narrations of the people of the book, which have been passed down by them, and they have entered our hadith books through Kabul Ahbar and some of the other scholars similar to him, and they have been recorded. So some of them pass the test of authenticity and others do not. So I think they should be dealt as these narratives and seen whether they are authentically transmitted, and obviously all the standards of authenticity have to be applied to them, and then we can make a value judgment.
But sir, if they are in consonance with what the Quran is saying, but add a few more details, then I think we have to use our good judgment to either believe them or not.
Yes, but we do have a guidance from the Prophet in this regard, and he says that in such a case, when you are not able to fully verify and they add something, then he said that la nusaddiq wa la nukazzib. We will neither affirm them nor deny them. They will be like a piece of information that is just there, and we are neither affirming it nor denying it. La nusaddiq wa la nukazzib.
But sir, if for example, a story is created and that story is in consonance with what the Quran is saying, and for small children,
So you see,
to get them interested.
At best, what we can say is that yes, it seems to be something which is in accordance with the Quran. So we would use careful words.
Right, sir. Thank you very much. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Dr. Saleem. We have a few chat questions accumulated, so we'll take 3 of those and then return back to the raised hands. First question asks, does your institute offer any certification courses regarding Mizan, Bayan, and Tajweed? And if there are any short-term courses?
Yes, we do offer. So we have two institutes who, we have a parent institute in Pakistan. Mawrid is its name, and you can look up its website. It offers a host of programs regarding teaching, both for the younger lot. Like, for example, we have a Sunday school that starts for the younger lot. It has a daily, a weekly routine. And children from age 8 upwards or age 7 upwards to 18 or 20, they are accommodated. And then there are other programs for adults as well. And then we have another, I would say, a set of programs which is offered by the US chapter of our institute, which is called Al-Mawrid US. And so if you look up their name and their website, you'll see on a very similar basis some similar courses, but with different timings. So they will have a US timing, and these Pakistani courses will have a Pakistani time. So you can select in accordance with the time that is convenient to you. And of course, there are variations as well. So some of the courses are common and there are variations. And you can just look them up on both their respective websites.
Are there any remote, or do they all have to be in person?
So some of them are in person, but as far as I know, 90% are remote.
Okay, nice. So whether you're in Canada or somewhere else, you can go join those courses. Awesome. The next question asks, this is quoting an ayah from the Quran. It says, "Enter paradise," and he exclaimed, "With that my people knew 27 how my Lord has forgiven me and placed me among the honored ones." This is from Surah Yasin. It seems that the person has gone to Jannah, and he says that after entering the Jannah, he says all of this. But we say that the Jannah is not made yet, and the decision to enter the Jannah will be on the hereafter day. So, like, how do we... Mm-hmm.
You see, I would need to look up that particular verse to give a definite answer, but just to give you a general principle, that you see a lot of things in the Quran that are mentioned for a future date to happen, but they are mentioned in the past tense so that the certainty of that event is depicted. It is as if it is said that, well, this is something that has been done. So when the person, for example, would say or said that, well, enter paradise, it doesn't mean that something that's happening now. It's a future event that is being depicted at this time.
Thank you, Dr. Saleem. The next question asks, haven't we made bare minimum practices seem like a big deal when in reality we're still falling short in fulfilling our duties to Allah? Even when I pray 5 times a day, I feel like it's not enough. It's a fard ibadah, so it's compulsory. Doesn't Allah have a greater right over our lives? Also, what are the best practices beyond just offering salah that can help strengthen our relationship with Allah?
The most important thing is that you have to realize that worship rituals are not an end in themselves. So what has happened is that because we think that they are an end in themselves, that at times we feel that vacuum in our own selves, that in spite of praying or in spite of fasting and doing other rituals, there is something missing. So the thing is that we have to understand that all these worship rituals, they are a means to an end. And that end is to become a better person than, which we just talked about earlier on, that a better person than yesterday, to be a good person and to be a good Muslim, to be a good practicing individual. So if you relate your worship rituals to your own character and see that how these rituals make you a better person, then you'll feel that fulfillment. Let me give you an example. We pray because we normally acknowledge God as our creator and someone who has blessed us with so many favors and so many gifts. So each time when you pray and you prostrate and you kneel and you remind yourself that I am kneeling before God and I'm prostrating before Him to thank Him for His immense blessings. I am placing my forehead on the ground to make thanks to Him, to show my gratitude that God, you blessed me with eyes and ears and intellect and 2 meals and clothes and friends, etc., etc. So if you are able to relate the purpose of your prayer to your own life, you'll feel that your prayer is not just an empty shell. It has something that really makes you look forward to it. Because if you are connecting to God through the prayer by realizing that when I'm praying, I'm thanking God for the favors that He has blessed me with, you look forward to it because these favors are so many. So it's a question of understanding the philosophy of your rituals and also relating them to your to the objective that they are asked. I mean, for which they have been set before us. So every worship ritual has an objective. The fast teaches us patience. Similarly, charity is something that we already know. It teaches us that we have to help other people. Hajj is a symbolism of struggle in the way of God. The animal sacrifice is a symbol of the fact that today this animal is being offered. Tomorrow, if my life is needed, I'll not withhold it. So you see, every worship ritual has a philosophy, a wisdom behind it, and it is connected to our life. So if you are able to do that, you'll find more interest in your worship rituals.
Thank you very much, Dr. Saleem. We have about 12 minutes left for the session, so I would request the remaining participants to please keep your questions on the shorter side. Khalid, please go ahead.
जी अस्सलाम वालेकुम डॉक्टर साहब, मेरा क्वेश्चन सूद के मुतालिक है। गामदी साहब जिस तरह तारीफ करते हैं सूद की कि कर्ज पर मनफत का तकाजा जो है ये सूद कहलाता है, तो इस तारीफ को मद्देनजर रखते हुए बैंकों में जो हम अपनी अमाउंट डिपॉजिट करते हैं और जमा होती है, तो वो तो कर्ज के तौर पे तो हम बैंक को नहीं दे रहे होते, वो तो हमने अपनी सेविंग को एक लिहाज से एक जगह पे रखा होता है और हमारे तकाजे के बगैर बैंक जो है अगर कोई प्रॉफिट दे रहे हैं तो आया वो सूद के जुमरे में आएगा या नहीं आएगा?
So if you look at the whole modus operandi of a bank, you'll see that you might not know this, but when you're signing on that document that you're opening up an account, you are authorizing the bank to use your money. So you just need to read the literature that is given to you when you're opening up a bank account. So in your savings bank account, your money is used for purposes that the bank thinks it proper, and that includes a major part of that includes lending people money on interest. And it's only the current account that is maybe a little bit better, because although they don't state it, but yes, this is something that they do give us a guarantee that this money shall not be used. But we do know that besides the saving amount, the current account is also at times used for this purpose. So if you have to keep something in the bank, it's best that you use the current account. And if you have to use the savings account, then there are two things that must be kept in mind. First, that if you're getting that money, that money in all probability is generated through interest-based transactions, and the only way that seems legitimate in this regard to consume that money is that if you think that the inflation rate is such that the money that you're getting in your account is just accounting for or barely accounting for the inflation that is making your money depreciate, perhaps that could be a reason. Otherwise, if the inflation, if the amount of money that you get is beyond the inflation rate, then of course, the amount which is beyond that inflation rate is something that you should not benefit from.
Khalid, does that answer your question, or do you have any follow-up questions?
Yes, I have a follow-up. डॉक्टर साहब, मैं असल में देख रहा हूँ उस तारीफ को जो सूद की तारीफ है। तो सूद की तारीफ में मैंने जब बैंक में या किसी भी बंदे ने बैंक में जब कोई अमाउंट जमा करवाई है, तो एक तो वो कर्ज नहीं दे रहा, यानी कि मैं कर्ज नहीं दे रहा बैंक को, बाकी बैंक जो भी कर रहा है तो वो तो बैंक का इशू है। मेरा उस सारी चीज के साथ कोई ताल्लुक नहीं है।
You have to understand that when you're opening up a bank account, you're signing a document. If you read that document, you'll realize that it is a certain amount that you're lending to the bank when you're opening up a savings account. I would advise you to please look up your documentation before signing. If you look at the documentation, you will be authorizing the bank that they can use a part of your money. So it's like a loan that they have actually borrowed from you. And you'll see that in your documents. It's not that they are doing it out of their own accord. They do it after your consent. It is for this consent that you actually sign up when you open a savings account. So I would advise you to just look up the documentation and you'll get to know that.
Thank you very much. Our next question comes from Dr. Atif. Please go ahead.
Assalamualaikum, Dr. Shehzad Saleem sir.
But
Sir, I wanted to seek your clarification on a point from Ustad Javed Ghamdi's view. Since he considered Jummah an institutional duty of the state, how should Muslim living in a country where the state doesn't assume this responsibility fulfill their obligation? Should they offer Zohar instead, or can they still?
I'm sorry, I was not able to hear your question. Could you please repeat the last part?
Yes. I said, where the state doesn't assume this responsibility, fulfill their obligation, should they offer Zohar instead, or can they still organize Jummah at the community level?
I think that there can be two possibilities to approach this question. One is that if the collectivity of the Muslims decides that because these rulers are not fulfilling their responsibility, so in order to keep that practice alive on their behalf, on the behalf of Muslims, we are going to take their place. So this could be one approach, and one could end up praying as normally we Muslims do, that even in places where rulers are not leading the Friday prayer, we end up praying, offering the prayer, and we pray behind the religious scholars. And the other option could be that you think that, well, this is something that is so specific to the state that if the religious scholars, they take up this responsibility, then this is not something which is actually sanctioned by religion. It actually creates divisions. It creates a religious leadership, and that is pitted against political leadership. It is something which can really wreak havoc, and it goes against these teachings. So I think both these views can be adopted. And in the second case, of course, if a person is so convinced, then he would pray Zohar in that case, and he would not be praying the normal Jummah. So in summary, what I'm saying is that both these options can be adopted. Both have their own merits. Both have their own reasoning. And I would suggest that you make your own choice.
Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, sir.
Thank you. Our next question comes from Rafia Khwaja. Please go ahead.
Assalamualaikum, Dr. Shehzad. Dr. Shehzad, my question is regarding the same sood ki jo baat ho rahi thi. For example, I have shares and the bank gives me on my saving account about 10%. But jo mere shares ke dividend pe, the government cuts a tax on every dividend of 15%. So जो inflation है तो मुझे तो 5% ज़्यादा काट रहा है, which the government should not be cutting. So how do I understand that inflation, my income just keeps going down because the government automatically cuts it?
For stocks, the procedure is that for your long-term shares, you should be giving 10%. And in your case, since the government is already deducting 15%, so you don't need to give any more for that. But for short-term shares in which the buying and selling is like an everyday buying or selling, or maybe not every day, maybe weekly or on a short-term basis. So in that case, you should just treat your shares as wealth. And on the day of your zakat, you should just give 2.5% of the head money, the worth of the shares in the market. So just to explain you again, that you see, when you're dealing in stocks, there are two types of trading that you do. One of them is long-term, which means that you buy a share and then you just keep it for, let's say, 6 months or a year or so. It is on these shares that you need to give 10% whenever you get the dividend. And for short-term shares, for example, in which buying or selling is like weekly or bi-weekly or even daily or twice a week, whatever. In such a case, you should treat your stock as a wealth, as an instrument of wealth, which means that you will be paying 2.5% on its current market value on the day of your zakat.
I do understand that, but how do I make, the government was cutting 12%. They've raised it on every dividend to 15%.
As I said, that would be something that you've already done. You don't need to do anything more than, you were required to pay 10%, but you have ended up paying 15%. So in fact, you have a leverage of 5%, which can be adjusted the next year as well. So you don't
So
need to do it.
So whatever the bank gives me, that doesn't really matter because they're not. I'm not getting 15% interest from them.
You see, this is you're talking about shares. Are you talking about bank or are you talking about stock market?
No, I'm talking about if I have a saving account, उसमें जो interest मुझे मिलता है, never more than 10%. But I have shares जिसमें से dividend और गांधी साहब ने कहा जो tax कटता है, that is like the interest they are cutting. So the government is cutting interest of 15%. Whether you call it interest or tax, he says this is the interest which the government cuts automatically for their kharcha. So they don't ask me कि आपको 10% देना है. They just cut it automatically.
Actually, I think maybe you have not fully understood what he normally says, as far as I have understood him as a student. You see, stocks and banks saving accounts must be treated separately. Both have a separate mechanism. If you're talking about a savings account, that's a different thing. If you're getting, let's say, interest in a savings account which is equal to 10%, and the inflation is more than 10%, then you don't need to pay anything. So this is one area. The other area deals with stocks. So stocks are different. They're not like savings, or they're not like bank shares or bank accounts. For stocks, I just explained, long-term stocks should be deducted. The taxation should be, the zakat should be on the basis of production, which is 10% at the time of dividend. And for short-term shares, they should be treated as instruments of wealth, which means that once a year, at the time of your zakat deduction day, you just need to pay 2.5% of their current market value.
Okay, I've understood that now. Thank you so much.
Very much, Dr. Saleem. The next question comes from Akram Batisa. Please go ahead.
Assalamualaikum, sir. Sir, the first or second participant asked a question without specifically mentioning the ayah from Surah Yasin. He was referring to ayah number 25 or 26. This is Inni amantu bi rabbikum fasma'un qila kulul jannah qala ya laita qawmi ya'lamun bima ghafara li rabbi waj'alni minal mukramin. तो ये है वो आयत जिसके बारे में वो पूछ रहे थे कि भाई जन्नत अभी बनी नहीं तो if you gonna explain please.
Which verse? Let me just look it up.
25, 26 or 36. Surah Yasin 25, 26.
27.
Yeah, and 27.
25, 26 of Surah number
27. Yeah, 36 ki.
You see, this is an entirely different context. It tells us that it was something that was given to him at the time of his death as a glad tiding. قِيلَ ادْخُلُوا الْجَنَّةَ قَالَ يَا لَيْتَ قَوْمِي يَعْلَمُونَ بِمَا غَفَرَ لِي رَبِّي وَجَعَلْنِي مِنَ الْمُكْرَمِينَ. So this is like a glad tiding that was given to him at the time of his death, that he'll be made to enter paradise when the time for entering paradise would arrive. You see, the whole context, if you look at verses, we go back and start from paragraph, and it starts off with verse 20. It says, وَجَاءَ مِنْ أَقْصَى الْمَدِينَةِ رَجُلٌ يَسْعَى قَالَ يَا قَوْمِ اتَّبَعُوا الْمُرْسَلِينَ. So this is the paragraph in which this whole issue is being discussed. And they are being told, this person is telling them that I don't ask for any reward from you. وَمَا لِيَ الْعَبُدُ الَّذِي فَطَرَنِي وَإِلَيْهِ تُرْجَعُونَ. And so why shouldn't I worship the person who has created me, the being who has created me, and everyone is going to return to him? And then it says, أَتَّخِذُ مِن دُونِهِ آلِهَةً, which means that should I make some other deity as my God? If the merciful God has to harm me in some way, so their intercession is not going to be of any benefit for me, and they'll not be able to save me from God. وَلَا يُنْقِذُونِ. And then it says, Inni izan lafi zalalim mubin. And in that case, I would be actually someone who goes into deep error. And then it says, Inni amantu bi rabbikum fasma'un. I listen to me, that I believe in your God, and you have to listen to me. And then it is said to him, Qila dkhul al-jannah. This is something of a glad tiding that was given to him at the time of his death, that when he was being his soul was being claimed by the angels, it was said to him that, well, your fate in this situation is going to be paradise, because remember, you were the one who had testified to God in this world. So it's not something that paradise has been created and the person is entering paradise. It's like a glad tiding, which is, as I said earlier on, it is given in the past tense, as if it is happening right now. And the past tense is basically meant to convey the certitude of the event that is going to happen in future. So the word ki ladkhul al jannah, it was said to him that enter paradise, is like a glad tiding that was given to him regarding the time of paradise when the time would come. And I would also suggest to you to please look up the explanation that has been offered by Ustaz Amin Islahi and of Ustaz Javed Ghamidi regarding these verses. And it is precisely what they have written that I have just explained to you.
Jazakallah khair, sir.
Thank you very much, Dr. Saleem. That was it for all the questions. So we ended on time. Thank you for all the participants for this, sort of bearing with us through the issues and coming up with questions on the spot so that we could continue with the sessions. And thank you so much, Dr. Saleem, for that little self-eval session. That was really helpful. And I hope other people will also find it helpful as they're going through this session. And thank you for answering our questions. Inshallah, we'll continue tomorrow with textual study of the Quran. And so until then, please take care. And assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.